All right, good afternoon, everybody. We're here. It's Friday. That means it's MSP Confidential time. I'm Luis Giraldo from ScalePad, your host for MSP Confidential. And I'm coming to you from Tofino, BC. We had the little skyline of Nashville up on the welcome screen. That's from a couple weeks ago when we were at the Robin Robbins event down in Nashville. I'm out in Tofino, BC, on the west side of Vancouver Island today. And so it's a little rustic setting here behind me because I'm in a little bit of a cabin scenario. Hopefully the internet and the bandwidth, the bandwidth holds up for our conversation today with someone who is a very special guest, Wayne Selk from CompTIA. Wayne, welcome to the live stream and conversation. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I've been excellent, and I think as the days progress in the year, I think we're kind of past Q1 now, and people are starting to reassess. Okay, what did we actually get accomplished in Q1? What are some of the things we're helping our clients do? And it's kind of provides these very interesting inflection points for reassessing whether we're hitting on some of those markers for either our own internal businesses or our clients that we're working with, if we're MSPs, of course. And in that category, I think is a very, very prescient term or item, which is risk. And, risk is a bit of a big word, I think, in the big context of things. But last October, you came to Vancouver and delivered this fantastic workshop as part of one of the CompTIA programs on just understanding risk, delivering cybersecurity conversations, creating a cybersecurity risk, or even just a risk strategy overall. And I thought that'd be a great place to just start and have this conversation. Now, your background, I think, precedes you in many ways. A lot of the industry is very much aware of who you are. But I know you spent some time at Symantec working with the Fed and a lot of governmental programs. And of course, spent a bunch of time at ConnectWise as a result of one of the M&A deals that brought you over. And of course, now leading the charge with cybersecurity programs at CompTIA. But tell me a bit about the Symantec days. I was actually particularly interested in hearing about, what exposed you the most to some of the cybersecurity risk management stuff that you so much talk about.
Well, as you can imagine, the federal government is really they're in the risk game, quite honestly. Especially, well, let me back up. Right, so it was an interesting time at Symantec when I hired on. I was actually a contractor on the Navy Marine Corps intranet project, working at BAE Systems. That too was because of an acquisition of the company I was working at. And we were at Raytheon ESC, which is located here in St. Pete, Florida, which is now a Superfund site, but that's a whole other story. Um, um, I actually was one of the very first hires into what became known as Symantec Federal Services. And they didn't have a federal services team prior to our NMCI team. We were called Public Sector Special Projects because we were engaged with pick a three-letter agency. I can just about assure you we had a staff body on the ground at that agency. And you could let your imagination run wild, but yes, we were probably at that agency as well, right? So it was a lot of fun. I was there for 8.5 years. So I explain it to folks this way, right? I saw the birth of Symantec Federal Services, and I actually had the not so distinct pleasure of having to shut down Symantec Federal Services in 2011. And at one point we had 80 people that reported up into our structure. I was the deputy director at the time, which was a lot of fun. But anyway, dealing with the federal agencies actually led. I was involved in governance, risk, and compliance during my time in the military as well. Right, I actually. This was in the 90s. I had implemented an information system at Ellsworth Air Force Base, called Personnel Concept 3, which was a lot of fun because I had taught myself Unix, AT&T System 5 Unix, I might add, by our
Well,
TFM.
and you were a network engineer, back in the day too, and you
Yeah,
spent some time doing data management as well. So all these paths converging, obviously, to kind of bring you into the GRC.
right, and that's part of the point, right? Because a lot of folks don't really understand my background. Well, those that know me well understand my background, where I came from. I like to consider myself a very well-rounded, recovering cybersecurity practitioner, because not only did I work for international network services after I got out of the Air Force. So I had my MCSE and NT4. I'm very proud to say that, which was a lot of fun. I've held the CISSP. I have my certified data protection solutions engineer from ISACA now, and that was just based upon resume and answering some questions when they were trying to seed that pool. But really, risk is. I've been talking about risk to a lot of my colleagues, even back in the '90s when I was first kind of getting that taste of cybersecurity and what did it really mean for industry. And I don't care, take your pick of size, right? Whether you're a small business, a medium business, a micro business, or an enterprise corporate environment, it literally doesn't matter. Everybody deals with risk differently, but they all have to deal with risk at some point in order to understand how that risk impacts their business and the business objectives on where they want to go.
Yeah, and I think the business objective is kind of the culprit of what needs to happen here, because in the land of, and I was a small MSP, so often I tie a lot of the conversations into the context of the small MSP and the trials and tribulations that exist there, that are often at a very different level of maturity than, let's say your 50-person or 200-person MSP that is doing some other things and have just even the human capacity to do some of the stuff around risk conversations, business outcome conversations. And so this topic of helping clients understand risk, I think is so fascinating, because we often perceive it from our own perspective, and the things that we're concerned about are not necessarily the things that customers are concerned about.
Right.
And so talk to me a little bit through this idea of helping clients better understand their own risk, and maybe the translation or flipping of the perspective that needs to happen for the average MSP to put it in the right terms for their customers.
Right. And I think the best place to start there, Lewis, is really the MSP has to understand their own risk first, right? I don't, and I would not encourage anybody to blindly attempt to have a risk conversation with a client without first understanding your own, right? Because if you don't understand your own risks, you're not going to be able to talk to the client about their risk. And the reason for that is we often fail to recognize the lack of experience that we have in dealing with certain aspects of business life, right? And risk is one of those things. And I appreciate you mentioned that you were a small MSP, and I think one of the biggest challenges, one of the biggest risks for small and even micro MSPs, by that I mean like solopreneurs, right? I mean, 1-2 people organizations, which do exist, right?
Many, yeah.
Yeah, right. We sometimes at that level fail to recognize that any negative impact to that business can literally shut your doors. That's it, you're done. And if you don't think about the risks that can impact your business, then you're doing yourself a very big disservice. And that actually translates down to your clients, right? Again, if the more you understand your risk, because you as a business, as an MSP, are being risk to your clients, right? Let's look at the tool stacks today. We could we could pick an RMM vendor, right?
Hmm.
If something goes sideways with that RMM and that gets compromised, think about the impact you now have downstream, right?
Yeah, major impact, not just for one customer, but potentially all of them. You know.
Correct. So that's risk that I think a lot of folks maybe take for granted, right? Oh, it'll never happen to me. I've got the appropriate set of controls in place, but I would say, do you?
Hmm.
I mean, we were talking behind stage before coming on. I think a lot of MSPs, we run into this quite a bit. I don't think they're quite prepared to handle or have those safeguards put in place that they really need to because of the uniqueness of the business.
Yeah.
I don't care the size. It doesn't matter to me. The smaller you are, it should be easier to do, but oftentimes it's not. We do for our clients more than we do for ourselves. And that's a huge risk. That's a huge risk to the industry, honestly.
Yeah, even the playbook, the blueprint of the checklist of the, what do we do in this scenario? Having even thought through those scenarios, I mentioned I'm in Tofino, BC, and one of the challenges with this area, for example, is that it's right on the coast of the open Pacific Ocean, and so tsunamis are a potential
Right.
risk to this entire area. And as I'm driving in, I started to notice the tsunami evacuation routes, things like this, and it seems like second nature once you see the little signpost on the side of a road. Oh, that's where we need to go if there's a tsunami alert. But it's funny how such even these basic signposts are missing in the average small business.
Right.
Of having thought through this is what could happen. What are we going to do in that scenario? And I think just having a plan, whether you have to stay on it or go tangentially off the plan ever so slightly from time to time, it could be the difference between actually accepting the issue that is happening and trying to jump into mitigating as quickly as possible, and not even knowing where to start and potentially delaying the mitigation and the issue becoming worse and so on. And so it just struck me that there's this interesting need for a bias for action around business risk identification and planning and documentation at the very least. And I asked this question, maybe not facetiously, but I know that it's a challenge sometimes with what you just said. Oh yeah, I understand what my risks are, but from there to having documented and being able to bring a team together to address the issue, or communicating to your cyber insurance overlords, what it is you're going to do when the proverbial poo-poo hits the fan. I think there's a very, very large gap there potentially. So I don't know, your commentary and advice on getting people to turn that stone, turn on their bias for action on this very, very important need. Happy to hear how people have been able to transition from this inaction to the action.
Right. And so you'll remember at that Vancouver workshop that I did, there was a solopreneur there. And during the workshop, prior to the workshop, I actually sent out a homework assignment.
Yeah.
And so it's not that Wayne created this completely out of the blue, right? Wayne, I talk about myself in the third person all the time. Sorry. That's me, myself, and I coming out. The homework assignment is really designed to get you thinking, right? Thinking about things you normally wouldn't have dreamt when you're looking internally and reflecting on your business. Again, solopreneur, put down a business objective. Now, for some background, he outsources everything, and I mean everything. He
Mm-hmm.
does all the sales, and he has a couple of outside entities that actually run the day-to-day operations. Right? You remember this?
I do, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So the interesting part of what he mentioned was that he recognized that he was not managing his outsourced contractors as one of the risks to achieving his business objective that he had put down, right? And so I asked him, You remember what he said?
No, I don't remember.
He said, first of all, damn you for pointing that out. I was re- I was really hoping that I could have just done this on my own. But what your exercise taught me is that I can't. I was not living a lie, but I was blinded by the fact that I wanted to go a certain direction, and I wasn't seeing that I had this huge risk
Hmm.
in my business. I said, so how are you going to fix that? And he goes, well, I'm going to have to hire somebody to manage the outsourced team, right? I can no longer do this on my own. I have to hire somebody to help me manage that side of the business and put eyes on the risk that those outside contractors may have on my reputation, because that's probably one of the largest impacts from a risk perspective to every MSP listening on this call is reputation, right?
Yeah.
Um, so focus on, I'll give you the exercise. It's really very simple. Write down one business objective. One.
I have the download actually.
You
Um,
do. Sure, yeah,
yeah,
you
yeah.
can share that. You can share that with folks
Uh,
if they write in and ask about it.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Drop us a comment in the chat. If you see this later on LinkedIn or YouTube, ping me there, and I'll send you the thing. It's actually there's a link for it on the event page for the October workshop on the CompTIA website, because if people had to complete it before coming to the workshop and have thought through some of these issues. And I thought it was a great exercise because it does sort of reframe a bit of your approach to thinking about your own business. And I love it from just the perspective of, I think a lot of us are just not even thinking about that, period. We have other reactive fires and things we're dealing with. And this kind of thing that may or may not happen is not always going to take the priority. And so this is, I think, sort of a bit of where that rubber meets the road is like, you have to choose to make it a priority. And if you're choosing not to make it a priority, I beg you to wonder whether you should be in this industry, right? So,
well, one of the other things I would say that most technologists today get hung up in technology.
mm,
And that is the most expensive, labor intensive time spent that you will ever do is getting hung up in technology, right? Because not only do you have to train your staff, you have to acquire the license to do it. Then you have to sell this downstream to your client base. And they wonder why you're raising your hourly rate or per user rate or however your device rate, whatever it is, right? Monthly charge. If you refocus and reframe and align your people to your risk, to your objectives, it makes a lot more sense because your people can actually solve and mitigate a lot of the risks for you. And then you move on to your process. Align your process to your people, solve for your risk, then take care of your objectives. That leaves the
mm.
technology for last. And I know you heard this at the workshop, but the beauty of leaving technology last is that you can then spend your time, your talent, and your treasure wisely in solving for the gaps you cannot take care of with your people in your process.
Well, and ironically, I think it addresses a bit of that underbelly of the small business entrepreneur feeling of like, I wish my people behaved more like business owners, which I hear this a little bit from time to
Yep.
time. I think there's certainly a realm of expectations there. That's another spectrum of expectations. But I think I love this idea of getting your people thinking about the business risk, because that naturally means we're all thinking about the same thing and trying to work towards solving for the risk in the business. So powerful. Now, people, process, technology are those three things that you talk about all the time. Maybe let's explore each one a little bit, only because with your background and your experience, there's probably summarized ways that people can think about this before they go and do the deep dive. But in that exercise, and I'll just sort of mention briefly what this exercise homework had. It said identify at least three risks for this business objective. Oh, so you have to identify a business objective. And so, if you're a small MSP, your business objective might be double our client size. And so one of the risks you might identify for doubling your client size is that if you have a security incident, you could end up losing all your clients, and therefore you're not achieving your business objective. Another business objective could be if you're doing some org chart planning and say, okay, I want to go from 3 employees to 6 employees by the end of the year. What could impede that? Obviously, some sales challenges could impede the ability to hire. Not servicing customers probably could impede some of those things. And so the process of just identifying the actual risks and where the priorities are going to start to bubble up, I think is so powerful. And then it says item number 3 on the work thing. I wonder if I can quickly share my screen here. Let me see if I can do that without breaking everything.
We're not live, are we?
We are live. We are live. Yeah, yeah. And I'm just feeling a little adventurous, having been an IT person in the past. You kind of learn on the job, right? So if I go source, share screen, let's see. I might need to hide our cameras real quick too. So I'll go boom, boom. Oh, it didn't let me do that.
Uh-oh.
Let's see if I can just move this out of the way real quick.
Well, there you go. Now we're hidden.
Yeah, so this idea, these were the objectives of the, write down the business objective, identify at least 3 risks that could impact the business objective, thinking through each of the risks above, name 3 possible mitigation activities. And it's just such a simple yet powerful exercise because I think it brings the exact priorities into view for not only the business owner but your team and the things that you build process wise and technology wise. And so I'm happy to share this around. Again, it's posted publicly on the CompTIA website, so I don't think it'll be a big deal if we share it around. But even just as an internal planning exercise, I feel like it would be a very powerful thing to do. So,
yeah, feel free to share that. And everybody should know that with our partnership with Rochester Institute of Technology and the Cyber Range, they have a wonderful cybersecurity degree program at Rochester Institute. I think it's number 1 in the world. But anyway, one of the instructors there, I sent my document to him, and he sent it to his class, and because I wanted to get their feedback. What did they think about this type of an exercise? They were all like, "Holy God, he's trying to get them to really think more about risk and create a risk management program." Is really what it is by understanding your risk and creating a strategy for how you can actually go about mitigating that risk without spending a lot of money, right? I mean, I'm not saying you're not going to spend any money, but you don't have to spend a lot of money in order to mitigate a lot of the risks to your business. So that shouldn't scare you off. If anything, it should help, to your point, drive that bias, right, to want to improve your overall risk posture for your organization. And again, I don't care about the size. It doesn't matter. Everybody
1-person shop, 10-person, 100-person shop. I think the realizations are the same. You're right.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, in that exercise, and I'm sure now by this point you've seen various attempts at the homework and people, doing a bit of their exploration. Where have you found people maybe misinterpret a bit of the exercise and how they're supposed to be thinking about it? And if you had to explain this homework before somebody went and did it, what might you say is sort of the guiding principles of it? As direct and straightforward as it seems, I'm sure people sometimes just maybe are in the right or wrong mindset and perhaps interpret it slightly differently.
That's absolutely true. It happens all the time. And I don't give them any other guidance than what's in that homework, right? So it's interesting because some folks struggle with business objectives. And I'm going to put this in the nicest way possible. If you do not have a business plan and you're a business owner on this call, you need to have a business plan. And inevitably, I get folks that say, well, Wayne, I'm not looking to sell my business. And I'm like, that's crap. Because if Wayne handed you a check for $25 million and said, let me see your business plan, I want to buy you, and you couldn't produce it, and I pulled that check back, you're going to be like, wait, what?
Maybe I do want to sell my business. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I do want to sell my business. But my point is, it's not just about selling your business. I can't tell you, because this happens too. I'm going to get a little morbid for a second. But business owners who do not have a business plan, do not have an exit strategy, do not have some path forward to keep that business going as part of a legacy, if they are no longer on this earth living and breathing, find themselves in a very big world of hurt, not for themselves, but with their family. Because inevitably, that family is relying on the income from that business in order to survive. And now that's gone, heartbeat, done, right? So if not for you, think about your loved ones, right? Think about the legacy you want to leave behind. Think about how you want your business to go on without you at the helm, because that could be a very real possibility and one of those risks that you need to account for.
Yeah, and I think this kind of easily helps us transition a bit into this idea of creating an actual strategy for risk. And I think talk through a little bit of what this strategy looks in broad strokes. And I guess operationalizing was another one of those items in the agenda for that workshop, operationalizing your risk, which in itself I think is part of the challenge. But the strategy kind of drives the operationalization of it, so to speak. And so maybe talk to me about the connection between these two things, strategizing for risk and actually operationalizing the risk.
Right. So it's a lot easier to take them in reverse order because you're going to have some trial and error, right? You may think that a way to mitigate a particular risk, you're going to try it one way, but then it doesn't quite work out the way that you thought it would. So you're going to have to go back and redo something, right? Mm-hmm. So getting it in and operationalizing your risk really means involving your entire team. Now, again, that could be me, myself, and I, right? Or it could be your outsourced community also helping you with this. But more importantly, it's really about because as you're operationalizing your risk that you see, again, refocusing your priority on your people first, your process second, aligned to your people, and then your technology third, aligned to your process, aligned to your people, right? You're going to get this better flow. And when we talk about operationalizing risk, I would be remiss if I didn't say this is going to have a positive impact, or should have a positive impact, on your culture as an organization, right? Because now, instead of it just being a top-down approach, you're doing a bottom-up, a left to right, and a right to left, right? And so the entire org is focused on the risks associated, because now the goal is making sure we achieve our business objectives, right? Because without doing that, we're not going to grow as an organization. And I've heard that as one of the arguments as well. I'm not looking to grow. I'm like, yeah, right, whatever. So you lose your highest revenue client and you're telling me you're not going to go after another one?
Yeah.
Right. Or 5 more to make up for that one. Right. So of course you are. You're going to figure out some reason. And when the nice part about this is that when you start getting into that flow as an organization, and that aha moment hits, and you realize I need to change our strategy and outlook because things become a lot easier, right? I can focus on the strategy. I'm like, where I didn't think I really wanted to grow, I need to grow in order to solve and mitigate some of this risk over here, right? Because I might need to hire more people, or I might need to replace some of my key personnel that I have today that are moving on to other organizations.
Limiting beliefs, right? Yeah, there's so much of that. Right? Yeah.
Well, of course. So You can kind of see how this all kind of starts coming together if you've really been listening to the conversation. Now you're at a point after you do the operational side, you can actually start helping your clients really understand their risk, right? And how you fit in and how you can help solve their risk to help them achieve their business objectives. It's no longer talking about technology. It's no longer telling them they need to buy the shiny new widget that you just sold them 2 years ago. It's how do we continue to improve your overall security posture so that you can hit your goals and objectives for your business, right?
And I love this because I think that this is neatly wrapped in the package that is GRC in many ways, because I see so many conversations with MSPs where like, okay, well, I'm going to wait until one of my customers raises their hand that they want to do some compliance framework, and then we'll figure it out, and then we'll sell them something, and then we'll go along for the ride. And it feels like such a reverse, like this is the VAR mentality from, 2 decades ago. It's like, yeah, if my customer says they need something, I'll go figure out becoming a reseller for that thing. And then I'll get my 10 points, 15 points of margin, and off we go. And I think this is maybe creating a little bit of a rub here, because obviously the MSP so importantly has to go through their journey of it as well to understand from the inside out how to actually help their clients, because the relationship is changing entirely. And so maybe talk to me a bit about this component of how the relationship is different in a risk contextual conversation as opposed to our traditional delegated productivity of IT, so to speak.
Right. So put yourself in the shoes of going and when you walk in to buy a car, have you not done your research on that car manufacturer? Or do you just walk in blindside and because nobody likes talking to a car salesman. I'll just be honest, right? I mean, good Lord. You need a new vehicle. That's why you're there. But you don't want to spend $50,000, $75,000 on a new car, right? Because that's what it says on the sticker. Do you? No.
Well, interestingly, Wayne, and maybe this is a different perspective, but I think it speaks a lot to why clients stay in relationships with their MSPs. Is in that scenario of the car, I actually might reach out to my network and be like, hey, does anybody know or have worked with a cool sales rep at Toyota, at Honda, whatever brand? And they might be like, oh, we just bought a car 2 years ago and we love working with this person, and here's their name and number. And that's already like, I would probably go give that person my money without necessarily having done a lot of the research, because I think it's that, you buy from the people you like and trust factor. And I think this is an important part of the equation too, in how MSPs relate to their customers, obviously. And I think we have to continue building on that relationship. They need to continue to like us so they'll continue buying from us. So I just mentioned that as an aside, because there's that component of the relationship building too.
Well, this is where I'm going, right? You're not just going to throw $50,000, $75,000 without doing a little bit of research, or like you said, reaching out to some of your friends to find out who is the best sales rep to deal with, right? The same thing is true on the MSP side. If your clients know that you are helping them manage their business better and reduce the impact from a very horrible, terrible, bad day, they're going to say, you need to move to my guy, right? Or gal. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I don't mean to offend anybody. But the point there is, if word of mouth helps, right? And if you're able to help somebody solve some of the challenges that they have to achieve their business objectives by having a different conversation around business, right? Not, again, selling technology and why it's important, but helping them understand the risks that are out there today that can have a very negative impact on them achieving their business objectives, lowering their current cash flow, losing their own clients,
not being able to pay your people, support their families. Yeah, there's all these issues.
Ultimately having to maybe shut your doors. I mean, that's what leads to a lot of lawsuits from customers actually suing MSPs, right? Is the not understanding the business. They have a very horrible bad day. Their reputation's in the toilet. They're going to make somebody pay to come back to whole. That's really what it amounts to. And if you can have and get the relationship with your clients to the point that they see you as helping them. Now, you can't take away their terrible, horrible, bad day, but you can make it less impactful to their business, right? Then that at least keeps more money in there. They're able to save reputation with the majority of their clients, if not all of them, and we can continue to move forward, right?
Yeah, the resilience, and it's so interesting that this
All
this
about
term is,
resilience.
yeah, that this term has made such uh, a splash, I guess, in the last couple of years, where we're really kind of moving towards cyber resilience more than any kind of mitigation. Even like we take it for granted something is bad is going to happen, and it's the recovery that's going to differentiate whether you survive or not. Obviously, so I think that resilience is not just cyber resilience. It's business resilience, and it's
Right.
all this planning in any aspect of the business. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And but understanding how to get to that point where you can come out on the other side virtually, I won't say unscathed, because you're going to have some bumps and bruises, maybe some scratches. But at least you might not have lost the limb, right? Or blind, or whatever.
Yeah.
But the point is, the goal here is to make sure that you're doing those things, solving for those risks and challenges, knowing them up front, so you're not eyes wide shut. That movie, right? With Tom,
Yeah, Tom Cruise. Yeah.
but eyes wide open, right? And fully understanding that if something comes at you out of left field, you know how to handle it. You have the safeguards in place, again, across your people, process, and technology, to be able to help minimize that impact and then move forward and thrive on the other side, right? Deal with it and move along. That's where we're trying to get to. Because we can't spend weeks, months dealing with the fallout of a very terrible, horrible, bad day. I mean, look at our friend Robert Cioffi. I mean, he's still dealing with it, right? From
Yeah.
July 2nd, 2021. So it's unfortunate, but he's to a point now where at least he's able to tackle some of these things a little bit easier, and he's got a message to share too around this whole scenario.
Yeah, it's interesting though how many people, for how many people, it's not real until it's
Real.
literally at their doorstep. So I think this is sort of that continuous evolution that we are going through, is accepting that is very much a clear and present danger, and there's no putting your hand in the sand enough that's going to help mitigate some of the issues, or make them go away.
Right.
And these days, it's not like you can be in business and not be exposed to, never mind the cybersecurity risks, but people, process risks, client relationships. Just there's so many things where an MSP can potentially go wrong and have a bad day. But
Yeah, there's other business disruption scenarios that folks don't even think about, right? I mean, we talked about it during the workshop. There's the supply chain
right,
stuff, right? I mean, there's a bad day at one of your technology vendors, right? That has a trickle down effect that impacts folks, that could have an impact on your business, and how you solve for that to overcome those challenges. That's just as important as dealing with the cyber event, right?
yeah. Let me talk about resources for a sec. This workshop I felt was so powerful. Are you doing this workshop again? Are you doing it virtually? Is it available for consumption inside the CompTIA portal somewhere?
Yes. So I actually recorded the risk management workshop for the folks going through the cybersecurity trust mark. We are delivering the. We have more than one workshop, by the way. There's also a culture and strategy workshop, and I'm working on developing a what is data workshop as well. But we're planning on delivering culture strategy, risk management, and what is data, as well as policy development at ChannelCon this year.
In Atlanta? Okay, that's at the end of July, early August. Yeah.
Yep, yep. I think we have 150 people registered already to come, and at least 100 of those have already signed up for the workshops because we're doing them on the Tuesday afternoon, no Tuesday morning, and then Thursday afternoon. So we're repeating the workshops twice at ChannelCon this year. So that'll be
there. Chris actually shared the. Let me see
of course.
I can get us on the here. Connect.comptia.org/ChannelCon. Thanks for sharing that, Chris. And good to see you, Chris. It's good to have. I didn't realize Chris was on. And so for those, as far as I know, if you're a CompTIA member, attending ChannelCon is free to attend, right? So
it's free for all of our
event. Yeah.
Yep.
And so that's
all of our events are free for members. Mm-hmm.
Yep. July 30th, 31st, and August 1st in Atlanta is when that is. So definitely check that out, ChannelCon. It's a great event. We've, as part of the Ecosystem Council, the SaaS Advisory Council that I'm a member of, we've been at a few of these. And the last ChannelCon, we did an interesting panel on working with vendors through the sort of adjudication process of handing out, a PO for business. And lots of great participation, and so many of the councils are doing great sessions at ChannelCon. So this is now a bit of a ChannelCon pitch, but I definitely recommend this event because there's a lot of value given, and workshops like this one from Wayne, I think, are incredible business transformation kickstarters for people to think about. In terms of resources, sorry, go ahead, Wayne.
We also have a cybersecurity focus track at ChannelCon as well. So our sessions will start Friday, 5 o'clock. I actually have CISA Region 4, their regional director Gamble, is going to be there to talk about how CISA can actually, in the various regions here in the US, can actually help with a number of resources for MSPs and your clients, which will be really, really cool. That actually kicks us off. And then Wednesday, we have briefings and then breakouts associated with briefings. So almost like a black hat like scenario, right? So it'll be, and the breakouts are for if you're new and you want to learn more about a topic, that's best that we're going to have one dedicated to that, and then we'll have another breakout for intermediate and advanced kind of stuff. So it'll be, we're kind of tackling the whole kit and caboodle, and it's all education. There are no sales pitches allowed at any of our events from a session perspective. So it really is all about thought leadership and education to help the MSPs grow, fully understand the topics at large that impact them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Wayne, thank you so much, man. This is a topic that obviously goes a lot deeper than we've kind of touched on today, and but I think these are things that we need to be reminded of that are important to be thinking about just in the overall go-to-market of any business. And I used to get these calls sometimes from people that I knew that had worked at a previous client and suddenly are going to branch off and start their own business. And what better time to help, a new entrepreneur or business owner be thinking about some of these risks and organize themselves around business risk mitigation than in the early stages of their business actually being born and going to market and starting all these activities and documenting some of these issues and challenges. And so I think as MSPs, we're sort of uniquely positioned to help the early stage businesses do this better. The bigger ones, they're going to do what they're going to do to some extent, but the small ones, I think it's kind of like when you think about, the children, they are our leaders of the future. And in many ways, some of these startup businesses are also the people that are going to be the next stage of business for a lot of us. So hit us up on LinkedIn. I will share anybody that requests it, that little exercise, that homework of thinking about a business outcome, some of the risks associated with ways to mitigate it and so on. Or, ping Wayne on LinkedIn to connect as well. I know you love connecting with folks at every opportunity you get. And you're a busy guy. You're traveling a lot to do these workshops, but come see us at one of the CompTIA events. I think ChannelCon in Atlanta at the end of July will be fantastic. So see us there. And once again, Wayne, thank you so much. If there's a resource or other place that you like sending people to as they start to bring this business of risk into view inside of their own businesses, feel free to drop it, because I think it's good when people go and find some resources to orientate a bit of their view.
It's very interesting. Folks don't give CISA enough credit, and we work with them as part of the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative as well, and they have a ton of resources for small businesses. So I would strongly encourage everybody to go out to CISA and look at the free tools that they have available out there for you to actually learn more about risk, how to mitigate risk, and heck, they'll even do a pen test for you.
Wow.
and,
Okay.
and yes, yep, and they'll send you the report. They'll even help you mitigate some of those things. I mean, they have so many cool resources out there. It is just a shame that folks are not taking advantage of it probably the way that they should.
Awesome. Wayne, can't wait to see you at one of the events upcoming, hopefully, certainly at ChannelCon. We'll be down there with a big crew from the ScalePad team, and looking forward to this knowledge bombs that you'll be dropping, because I think this business risk stuff is so important. Thanks once again for spending a few minutes with us on MSP Confidential. We're here every Friday, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Once again, Wayne, thank you so much.
Thanks. Appreciate you.